And welcome to another edition of High School Roundup here on CUTV. I'm your host, Anthony D'Agostino, and alongside me today as my analysts are the dynamic duo of Zach Prosba and Matt Hagee. Hey guys, great to have you on the show.
Oh, it's always great being here. We had a pretty good week of high school football, and then we got an even better one to talk about this week.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, both of us being on this side, your first time ever hosting Roundup, kind of interesting. Don't really know what to do. It's different.
It's different.
We're going to start it off with the CUTV game of the week, and CUTV went to Elizabeth Forward, where the Elizabeth Forward Warriors took on the West Mifflin Titans. And Matt, you actually have the highlights for this game.
I do have the highlights of the game, a game that you announced with our newest CUTV announcer, Ricky Safer. You guys did a great job. And we'll kick it off here, Elizabeth Ford, a wonderful stadium in Elizabeth. And we'll see West Mifflin start Marquise Martin on 4th down, 9-yard TD run to make it 7-0 West Mifflin. And then right here, Howard Reed. West Mifflin has a lot of good running backs. And here, Howard Reed, 25 yards out, and West Mifflin goes up 14-0. It looks like West Mifflin's going to pull away here. And then Steve Mayernick for Elizabeth Ford, throwing the ball, gets deflected off the hands and intercepted by Dorian Johnson. Nothing going right for EF. Now, but right here, EF gets a break. Tyler Osilka picks up the ball and runs 44 yards the other way for a fumble return touchdown to make it 14-6. EF would fail on the kick, and EF still in the game. But then we'll see a lot of this. Long runs for West Mifflin for touchdowns. Howard Reed again, 62 yards, and makes it 21-6 West Mifflin. A lot of talent out of this Titans team. And then watch this play right here. Quarterback Carlin Garner, flushed from the pocket, runs towards the sideline, almost steps out of bounds, throws across his body, and there he finds Dorian Johnson waiting for the football. What a play. 27-6 West Mifflin. They missed the extra point. Now EF tries to get back in the game with a trick play. That is Jonathan Devine, who gets picked off by Brody Galante. We saw that last week. Frazier tried to do that, worked to success. It didn't work for EF there. Now West Mifflin has a chance before halftime to add on to the lead. And Garner will go to the end zone here with under a minute to go. But Jonathan Devine makes up for his interception with an interception of his own in the end zone to keep EF in the game. But in the third quarter, it was all West Mifflin Titans. This is Carlin Garner. He takes it 45 yards, close to the goal line. Does not get a touchdown here, but he sets up on the next play, I believe. Marquise Martin on 1st and goal, 3 yards out for his second touchdown of the game to make it 34-6 West Mifflin. And West Mifflin was not done yet. We can see Carlin Garner, mobile quarterback. Look at this run right here. Goes right up the middle and makes a couple guys miss. This is a very dynamic run. He's been there. He's the second straight year. He started at quarterback for West Mifflin. That was a 73-yard touchdown run to make it 41-6 West Mifflin, just pouring it on. And one last time here, we see another new running back, Darnell Carey, go 55 yards to the house to make it 47-6 West Mifflin. And I have to mention here, kudos to West Mifflin. Did not attempt an extra point. They just took a knee, kind of shows some sportsmanship. But West Mifflin gets a big win to continue their playoff push. 3 rushing touchdowns of 50 or more yards for the Titans.
And that was pretty insane. Calling that game, watching the West Mifflin offense, it was a powerhouse. You had to watch Carlin Garner as a passer and a rusher. So, you know, California Vulcans as well saw that too in college football. So Garner's starting to look like he could be more of a college athlete as well right now. Moving in to the AAA Big Ten Conference, some scores here. Bell Vernon up 41-0 over Albert Gallatin, and Trinity defeating Yock 62-20. And guys, take a look at this Trinity over Yock game.
And Trinity, it's no surprise that they beat Yock, but what's surprising is how big of a margin that they defeated them. And Trinity has a very tough contest upcoming this week with West Mifflin, who you just saw. And if Trinity is able to win one of their next 2 games, they have a very good shot of making the playoffs. After we saw them in the first game of the season against Bell Vernon, we thought, okay, this team could be good, but I don't know how high expectations could be. They're right there on the brink of being a postseason team.
And moving on to the next scoreboard, Thomas Jefferson 35-0 over Uniontown. And then looking into the Big Ten standings, Bell Vernon and Ringgold have clinched. Bell Vernon undefeated 7-0, Ringgold 6-1. Guys, pick a team that you want to look at coming up in the next few weeks.
Well, Thomas Jefferson, you saw there 5 straight wins after starting 0-2. They're back, and we knew the Jaguars were back And now it's all about, they're probably not going to get Ringgold or Bell Vernon because they don't have the tiebreaker because they lost to both of them. But they have West Mifflin, not this week, but the week after that, and they are able to build their way up back in the AAA. What a story they've been, and it starts with their running back, Quentin Hill. They run the ball a lot, and it starts with him.
And I'm going to look at Laurel Highlands, and unfortunately, this may not be for such good reasons. Laurel Highlands, they have Bell Vernon this week. I'm not sure exactly who they have next week. I want to say
Albert Gallatin.
Albert Gallatin. Okay, Albert Gallatin. So that should be a win there, but they're holding on by the seat of their pants right now. Being a postseason team, they are in that 5th spot. Now, 5 teams per division make it in AAA and plus 1 wild card. Laurel Highlands, they have to be careful. They cannot stumble against Albert Gallatin, and maybe they need to pull out this win against Bell Vernon this upcoming week.
I think they do. I think Trinity has the better strength of schedule coming up. Trinity has the capability. They're both tied 4-3 in the standings. If they move up over Laurel Highlands, they will get into the playoffs over top of them, and Laurel Highlands will have just barely missed the playoffs. Now moving in to the Quad A Foothills Conference scores, the Kiski Area School District defeating Altoona 13-2, and Plum losing to McKeesport 42-7. And take a look at McKeesport over Plum. I feel ashamed for picking Plum.
Well, Plum's a good team, and they had high expectations, but McKeesport's running attack is just too good. They have too many guys. Josiah Allen scored in the first play of the game. Plum only had 3 first downs in this game, so McKeesport showed how good their defense can be as well in this ballgame.
And moving in more towards the Foothills Conference, Latrobe losing to Hempfield 62-12, and Norwin beating Connellsville 52-35. And how about this Norwin-Connellsville game?
I'm surprised Connellsville was able to put 35 up on Norwin. I know Norwin has had some struggles with teams like Kiski, Hempfield this year. I still don't know what to make out of the Knights right now. They are probably a playoff team, but I don't know if they're going to be able to go any further than the first round. I think they might be an early exit this year. They just haven't shown much consistency.
And interesting indeed, as we will look at the standings later on. Moving again, non-conference game, Penn Trafford 63-0 over Shaler. Then moving into the standings, we have the interesting factor: Penn Trafford, McKeesport, Plum, and Kiski have all clinched, but not Norwin. Guys, what do you make of that?
Yeah, that's weird. I don't understand that because Norwin beat Kiski.
I thought Kiski beat Norwin.
No, Norwin beat Kiski because I picked Kiski, you picked Norwin, and that was 2 weeks ago, I believe. So Norwin beat Kiski, lost to Plum. But when I saw that on MSA, I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. But, I mean, Norwin's going to get in. I mean, I would think Norwin's going to get in eventually over Kiski.
Yeah, you would have to imagine. That's very interesting. And if you, at home, understand why that is the way it is, tweet us at CUTV_PA. We'd like to figure this out and make sure we get everything right here on the show.
That we would. Just very interesting seeing Norwin like that. But coming up next here on High School Roundup, South Union Township's Game of the Week highlights. Laurel Highlands took on Ringgold, and we'll also have some AA and single A scores and standings. Stay tuned for more here on High School Roundup here on CUTV.
Complete news, entertainment, and sports coverage from around the area, region, and nation is found right here on CUTV News Center every Thursday at 5 p.m. with anchors Jennifer Germano, Zach Prosba, entertainment with Mike Mays, and sports with Matt Hagee. Follow us on YouTube, CUTV News Center, and on Twitter, CUTV_PA, for your complete rebroadcast of your Vulcan sports. News Center airs every Thursday at 5 p.m. on Armstrong and Atlantic Broadband.
And welcome back to High School Roundup on CUTV. And right now we're going to look into the last AAA game that we had. South Union Township Sports Network had the Ringgold Laurel Highlands game. Laurel Highlands taking on Ringgold at Ringgold. And Zach, you have the highlights for this game.
Yeah, this is actually the first time I'm going to be able to read through the Laurel Highlands highlights this year. I'm kind of excited because Laurel Highlands has been a pretty good team all year. So we'll go ahead and get things underway between the Mustangs and the Rams. First play, Jimmy Pierce, a 6-yard touchdown score. Fortunately, the extra point was missed, and that may factor in later in the game. Now, George Martin, a 31-yard pass to Dalton Holt, which sets up a touchdown on the very next play, making it 7-6 Ringgold. Moving into the second quarter, George Martin, a 26-yard pass to Brian Van Dusen, sets up another touchdown, so it makes it 14-6. Jimmy Pierce probably, I think, the single best player in the Big Ten, a 15-yard touchdown run. They missed the 2-point, though, so Laurel Highlands leaving some points on the board. And then Shakar Berry, I think the only competitor that Pierce has for that top player in the conference, 22-yard run sets up a touchdown. So end of the half, it was 19-15 Ringgold. Now Shakar Berry gets in the end zone, a 20-yard scamper, making it 26-15 at end of the third. And then here, a nice play from Pierce to Livingston sets up this touchdown where Pierce runs it in himself for 2 yards. Now, Pierce looking for his best receiver, Livingston, again, and almost the exact same play. It's picked off by Dalton Holt. He's going to run this back 98 yards, 8 yards short of our record that we saw 106 from Tim Vecchio. And Ringgold's going to be able to pull out the victory 32-21. And I'm honestly surprised Laurel Highlands kept it this close. And I think Laurel Highlands had a very legitimate shot of being able to win this game, which very surprising because Ringgold, they are one of the best teams in AAA. And Laurel Highlands, kudos to them for being able to keep it this close and show that they can be competitive. And this is also the first game they have scored more than 17 points in a loss.
And it was actually really interesting because Jimmy Pierce scored all of the touchdowns for Laurel Highlands. So 3 touchdowns for Laurel Highlands, 3 touchdowns for Jimmy Pierce. And with that win for Ringgold, Ringgold clinches the playoff spot. So moving now into AA Interstate Conference scores, Mount Pleasant over Charleroi 42-0, and Burgettstown loses to McGuffey 31-7. Guys, pick a game out from these scores.
Well, I'm going to look McGuffey-Burgettstown. I really thought Burgettstown had a shot here of pulling a big upset. I think it was one of our pick'em games, and a majority of us went with McGuffey, I think just because we weren't supremely confident in Burgettstown. But in the back of my mind, I thought they had a very good shot of defeating the Highlanders, and they just weren't able to pull it out.
No, and Mount Pleasant 42-0 over Derry, pretty big. Down Brownsville over Derry, actually loses to Derry, 15-12. Brownsville kept it close. Southmoreland over Waynesburg 21-12. And how about this Brownsville-Derry game?
Yeah, Brownsville was up 12-0 in this game, believe it or not. Just like last year, Brownsville had a double-digit lead, but Derry, there's just so much magic in them. They just know how to pull these games out of a hat. Matt Marin for them, who we saw this year, blocked a Brownsville punt and returned it 20 yards for the go-ahead touchdown with 2:50 remaining in the game. Brownsville's so close. Very competitive this year. I'm proud of what Brownsville's doing this year. They're playing great ball.
And our director, Gary Smith, actually went to Brownsville High School, so I'm pretty sure he's proud of how Brownsville has been playing as well. Moving on, more in the interstate conference, non-conference game, actually, Washington over New Brighton, 49-7. How about this Washington team?
And Washington, I think they're a definite competitor. I think only Aliquippa is above them in AA right now for who could win the state title, at least in the WPIAL side of things. Now, when they get in the PIAA, I think Washington is really outnumbered in terms of talent, but a big non-conference win over New Brighton, and they really have everything set up just looking ahead towards the playoffs on a deep run.
And looking into the AA Interstate Conference standings, 2 teams have clinched so far. It's Washington, Mount Pleasant. And which teams are you looking at now to possibly clinch the playoffs?
Well, I think Derry Burgettstown, it's basically for the final spot in that division for the playoffs. It's going to be this week. It's going to be at Burgettstown. Derry, I mentioned before, the Magic over Brownsville. They had a weird win against Southmoreland where they had to come from behind in the last minute. And also against McGuffey. So this is a battle-tested team, but Derry makes good on the road. They've had a lot of great road victories, and then they got to get another one against Burgettstown.
And I'm going to tell you what, McGuffey is very lucky to have beaten Burgettstown because they get Washington next week, and I think we can all agree that's not going to be a win for the Highlanders. Washington just does not, rest easy on their laurels towards the end of the year, so they're lucky that they got that win. Or I would have really predicted that McGuffey would be on the outside looking in, and I think Derry, Burgettstown, maybe even Southmoreland could have had a play at the playoffs.
And I definitely agree with you there. I think that it's going to be interesting because these teams are really close together. When the power rankings come out from the District 7 or the WPIAL, it's going to be interesting to see how these teams rank in their respective, Quad A, Triple A, Double A, or Single A. So then moving into Single A Eastern Conference scores, we have Jeanette taking on Monessen, coming away with the victory 56-29, and Sierra Catholic losing to Clairton pretty close, 16-14.
That was my mistake. No, Clairton won 60-0. That was my mistake.
I'll say, wait a minute.
Yeah,
what happened here?
I was a little surprised by that.
My mistake.
60-0 win over Sierra Catholic Clairton. But how about this Jeanette Monessen game, guys?
Jeanette, they needed a bounce-back win over Monessen. They fell behind early. I think maybe kind of hung over from that big Clairton loss, but Giovanni Sanders had 3 touchdowns in that game, and Jeanette back on the winning track and looking to close out the season strong.
And continuing on in the Eastern Conference, Riverview over Leechburg 35-14, and Greensburg Central Catholic 41 over Wilkinsburg 18. And how about this Greensburg Central Catholic school?
I think Greensburg Central Catholic is one of those teams that people don't really realize is a pretty good squad. I think if they get in the playoffs, they may have a chance to maybe knock off a first-round opponent, maybe get in the second round. I'm not going to guarantee it, but they're still a very good team. They can throw the ball, they can run the ball with L.A. Ross, and their defense is pretty darn good as well.
And continuing on, the non-conference game, Springdale took on Jeff Morgan and came away with the victory, 28-14. Pretty close game.
It was, and Ben Sawicki led the way for the Dynamos, 128 yards rushing and a touchdown. The Dynamos, this was a close game, but then used 21 points in the second quarter, 21-0 nothing run in the second quarter to get that big non-conference win. And Springdale, they're also a decent team, and they get GCC this week, so that's going to be a big test for them.
And it really is. Moving on to the single A standings. 3 teams have clinched: Clairton, Jeanette, and Greensburg Central Catholic. And guys, which one do you think is going to clinch next?
Oh, it has to definitely be Springdale. I think Monessen, I said earlier in the year, I think Monessen would be the team that would slide because they have a tough competition ahead of them. Springdale already beat Monessen as well, so Springdale definitely has the easier road. I think even as early as this week, I think Springdale could vault themselves into the playoff conversation.
I agree. Springdale will get the last spot, but for Monessen, it's been a tough year since what happened that Wilkinsburg game. They've tried to respond. If they get Clairton this week on the road, it just is not getting easier for the Greyhounds.
And that it doesn't. And coming up next on High School Roundup. No. Oh, I did not notice that.
It's okay. It's your first time.
I
We'll give you a little
apologize, people.
slack.
We have some more scores for you guys. Tri-County South Conference, Bentworth taking on Mapletown, 42-14 winners for Bentworth, and then Beth Center taking on Avella, 48-6 victory for Beth Center.
Well, Bentworth in this game clinched playoff spot. Congratulations to Bentworth. Josh Hughes, their quarterback, 501 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. That deserves a yo.
And that's why I call them Big Bad Bentworth this year over my gosh Mapletown. Bentworth is a very serious team this year. We've not been able to see them. I would love to be able to watch one of their games in person to see just how talented they are.
And it was kind of cool having their band come in with the California Vulcans band that I'm in. It was really nice to see them, really nice people as well. I would love to see their football team as well. So moving on in the Tri-County South Conference, Fraser took on Carmichael's, and Carmichael's put up a good number, 21 points over Fraser, but Fraser came away with the victory, 49-21. And then California High School shutting out West Green 55-0. But how about this Carmichael's team putting up 21 points against this Fraser defense?
Yeah, that's either a combination of Fraser had some turnovers and Carmichael's took advantage. Fraser's defense kind of relaxed a little bit after crossing off Beth Center off their hit list, I guess you could say this year, needed to get that win. But Carmichael's is a good team. I'm not exactly sure if they're still alive for playoff contention. I think they are. It's all going to come down to the Black and Blue Bowl against Jeff Morgan this year.
And continuing on, we have the Tri-County South standings. 3 teams have clinched: Fraser, Bentworth, and Beth Center. Which team do you guys like clinching the playoffs next?
I think, we're not going to know this week because Jeff Morgan and Carmichael's, it's going to come down to that game in the last week of the season. That game's at Jeff Morgan this year. Jeff Morgan won at Carmichael's last year. We broadcasted the game. Jeff Morgan gets Beth Center this week, and then we're doing the Avella Carmichael's game. So I think Carmichael's, I think they'll tie it this week because I think Beth Center is going to beat Jeff Morgan. And I think it's going to come down to the Black and Blue Bowl at Jeff Morgan, which I will not say who's going to win that game until next week.
Yeah. All I remember is the Black and Blue Bowl is what cost me the
Yes.
Pick'em championship
Yes, it
last
did.
year. So I'm actually, I agree with him. I think Carmichael's gets a win over Avella this week. But we'll see in a second. That's one of our Pick'em. And then all comes down in next week. It's going to be very close. I think that's one of the closest matchups we have this year is who's going to be the last team in.
And definitely. And coming back, when we come back to High School Roundup, it's schedules. The schedules this week, our Pick'em, and our top 3 plays. You're watching High School Roundup on CUTV.
Sync preset 1 for Cal U's best music. More music in the car. More music in the door. More music everywhere. This is 91.9 WCAL Power 92. The home of the Vulcan Nation. Playing Cal U's best music. 91.9 WCAL. WCAL Power 92.
First published in the 1880s, the California Times is the oldest student media at California University. Circulating 3,000 issues weekly on campus and in the surrounding community, the Times' mission is to deliver fair and balanced news to the student population of California University. All students are welcome to be a part of the California Times. Our offices are located in the Natali Student Union. Keep up to date with the Times online at www.caltimes.org, Facebook, and follow us on Twitter.
And welcome back to High School Roundup on CUTV. We're going to dig into the schedule this week, October 23rd. We're going to start off with the Foothill schedule. Hempfield at Altoona, Penn Trafford at Plum, McKeesport at Norwin, Connellsville at Kiski, and Latrobe at North Allegheny. And guys, pick a game that you want to look at right now.
Poor Latrobe. Good luck. But I think for Norwin, I think they host McKeesport, they're home, and they're like mentioned, we can't mention what this Norwin team, but they might be a little peeved that they didn't get the playoffs and Kiski did, a team they beat. So that might go out there and fire them up. McKeesport's got everything clinched. And Norwin, I think McKeesport should be on upset alert.
And moving on in the schedule, the Big Ten schedule, Uniontown at Albert Gallatin, Yock at Thomas Jefferson, Trinity at West Mifflin, Elizabeth Forward taking on Ringgold, and Bell Vernon at Laurel Highlands. That'll be the South Union Township game of the weekend. Zach, pick a game you want to look at.
Trinity, West Mifflin. And I said last week on the show, I thought West Mifflin had a very good chance of being upset at Elizabeth Forward. And they didn't. They were able to stave that off. West Mifflin, I still have some premonition inside of me that they play down to teams. And Trinity, they are on a mission to get into the playoffs. And if they win this week, I'm not sure if they clinch, but they at least have, I think, the best wild card slot. I think Trinity, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they make this a very much closer game than what people would think.
I'd actually agree with you on that, Zach. We'll look at our pick'ems later, but moving in to AA, the interstate schedule, Washington taking on Southmoreland, Derry at Burgettstown, Charleroi at Brownsville, McGuffey at Waynesburg, and Aliquippa at Mount Pleasant. And guys, I'm actually going to look at the Derry at Burgettstown game. That's a pretty big one for Derry to try to come away with that victory and really hold that playoff spot or clinch playoff spot. So moving on to the next schedule, that should be the Eastern Conference, Monessen at Clareton, Springdale at Greensburg Central Catholic, Leechburg at Sierra Catholic, Wilkinsburg taking on Riverview, and Bentworth at Jeanette. And Matt, do you have any games you want to look at?
I mean, that non-conference game's pretty good, Bentworth and Jeanette, but it's this big because the Tri-County South teams have struggled against the Eastern Conference. This is a big game for Bentworth. I mean, it's not going to count against them in the standings. They're in the playoffs, but if Bentworth really wants to prove their worth, pun not really intended, but it worked, they got to go on the road to Jeanette, a very hostile place to play. It's a big game.
And I'm going to tell you what, Bentworth is the closest team to have beaten Fraser this year. Fraser's a pretty darn good team. If they beat Jeanette, I think Bentworth would win a first-round playoff game, whereas Fraser may not.
I completely agree with that. You know, Bentworth really close in the Fraser game. Moving on then, schedules Tri-County South, Mapletown at California, West Green at Fraser, Avella at Carmichael's, Beth Center taking on Jeff Morgan, and Bentworth at Jeanette. And Zach, pick a game other than Bentworth at Jeanette since Matt just discussed that.
I'm going to do Avella Carmichael's just because it's our game. Carmichael's needs this win to stay in contention because if they happen to lose, I'm pretty sure that locks it up for Jeff Morgan, unless I think Jeff Morgan loses. Then it gets into a couple different scenarios. But Carmichael's needs this win. They should beat Avella, but Avella somehow always seems to surprise some people towards the end of the season. I mean, they're not as good as they were in the last couple seasons when they made playoffs, but they're still a decent squad that could put up some points.
And moving into our pick'ems, now that we saw the schedule, the standings. Right now, Zach is in front, Matt is right behind him. I'm in third place, and Gary Smith down below. You guys went
Very efficient
5-0.
week.
Yeah.
It
All of
wasn't-
us did pretty
yeah.
well.
It wasn't really a tough week. To be honest, it wasn't the toughest week to pick games, but it was a big 5-0 to keep pace with him.
And that's going to change this week because I know we have some different picks.
Yes, we do.
I should have been 5-0, but I picked Plum and smack on the head for that one. And checking out what we picked for this week for Bell Vernon at Laurel Highlands, everyone going for Bell Vernon over Laurel Highlands. We just think Bell Vernon has the upper hand over Laurel Highlands there. Bell Vernon's undefeated right now. So moving on to the next one, West Mifflin at Trinity. So big game for Trinity, but we all picked West Mifflin. Matt, why did you pick West Mifflin over Trinity on this one?
Well, I picked West Mifflin because I think their offensive talent, goes a long way. They have so much depth at the running back position. We saw like 3 different guys score in that game. And also because they're at home. If the game was at Trinity in Hiller Stadium, I think Trinity would have a better shot winning this game. This is going to be a good game. Trinity is hungry to get this win.
Moving on to our next picks, Derry at Burgettstown. This one we kind of differ. Gary and Zach going with Burgettstown. Me and Matt going with Derry. And Zach, why did you pick Burgettstown in this one?
I picked Burgettstown just because I want to see if they have what it takes to get in the playoffs. And I remember early in the season, we thought Burgettstown-Brownsville could have been a matchup where whoever wins that game gets in the playoffs. Derry, they're a very good team, but they had struggles with Brownsville. And I'm not saying Brownsville's a bad team, but they're one of the lesser teams. I mean, you need to kind of beat up on them, I think, to prove something to me. I think Burgettstown being at home gets this big victory.
And moving on to our next pick'em game, it's Avella at Carmichael's, and we're all picking Carmichael's in this one. So moving on to the next, Springdale at Greensburg Central Catholic. We're all picking Greensburg Central Catholic, but guys, Springdale kind of kept it close to Jeff Morgan.
Well, yeah, I mean, they had an impressive win against Jeff Morgan. I believe last year they beat GCC on their home field, but I think GCC just has too many weapons. They have a good quarterback in Tom Pellis and also L.A. Ross, who tore it up last week against Wilkinsburg. I think L.A. Ross is the difference in this game, and also I'm going with that home field advantage again. Home field advantage, GCC gets the win.
And moving on now, should be the top 3 plays, and Matt started off with the number 3 play.
All right, number 3, we're going to Elizabeth Ford for this one, and you're going to see a lot of Carlin Garner here. He takes this one. Look how mobile he is. This is 73-yard touchdown run. He's zig and zagging. Look at that move. My goodness, this kid is a talent and one to watch for West Mifflin going forward. He's going to lead them into the playoffs.
And then looking here at number 2, we're going back to Elizabeth, Pennsylvania. Carlin Garner. I was directing this game, and I'm in the truck. Okay, I think this play is dead. This play is dead. He throws it. I think, okay, it's going out of bounds. And then all of a sudden, a guy catches in the end zone. It was just that kind of night. West Mifflin had nothing that really could go wrong for them, coaching to a big victory.
And number 1, it comes from Laurel Highlands Ringgold, and it's Jimmy Pierce going deep down the field to Chad Livingston, but it's picked off by Dalton Holt for Ringgold, so he will take it back for the touchdown after he hurdles his own player to make it into the end zone. But will that interception, kind of like Tim Vecchio's 106-yard interception, will that interception top this play, our Blue Ribbon play from Frazier? No, it won't. Frazier's triple reverse flea flicker, whatever you want to call it, going deep down the field for the touchdown, basically gives Frazier the go-ahead victory in this one. And that will remain our Blue Ribbon play.
As well it should. That play clinched a conference, basically, and I still am so enamored with the arm that kid had to throw the ball that far downfield. We didn't see that at all in that game except for that one play.
He's not even the quarterback. That was Caleb Cox. He's not even the quarterback, and he made a great pass right there. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that game.
It was a huge game, and you know, it's kind of funny seeing Frazier, this wide receiver, being able to throw it deep down the field. But when EF tried it, they failed on that kind of play. So Frazier's got the arm for it, and that'll conclude this edition